Hello and welcome to another Warrior Creed live stream with me, the Radical Majid Nawaz. And today's topic is on your screens right about now. You should see the title. It says Poland strips Zelensky of national medal for supporting Nazis. That is the title for today's stream. It is a incredibly uh, disturbing development in the relationship between Poland and Ukraine, but one that is not surprising, as our regulars here on the Warrior Creed live stream will be aware of. Here is the cartoon accompanying today's stream. That is an image of a swastika carved out as some form of maze, and the only exit is through the toilets there. At the end, you can see the image of a toilet with the word exit on top of it. And that image will be, of course, credited to its artist creator in tomorrow's weekly Radical Dispatch as it is released. But as we've said, today's topic is very clear on your screens. Poland strips Zelensky of national medal for supporting Nazis. We are going to demonstrate over the course of this stream the historic relationship between Zelensky and his some of his armed battalions, such as the Azov battalion, that became the Ukrainian National Guard, and the relationship, the troubling relationship Zelensky's Ukraine has with actual Nazis, the actual Nazis from history, the continuity of the Nazis from the Nazi era, not neo-Nazis in the sense that they are reinventions or reimaginations of Nazis. These are the continuation of actual Nazis that fought under the Nazis themselves, under Hitler, in World War II. Ukraine has a strong heritage and history that is unfortunately tainted by such associations that has recently come to the fore due to Poland discovering something that Zelensky recently did that they took as a direct snub at their generosity and aid that they have provided Ukraine up until this point in Ukraine's struggles against Putin. So all of that is going to be demonstrated over the course of this stream. Don't go anywhere. We are discussing the topic. As you see, Poland strips Zelensky of national medal for supporting Nazis. That's all coming up on today's Warrior Creed live stream with me, the Radical Majid Nawaz, right after these opening credits.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge. Witness the strength of street knowledge. Street knowledge.
Terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan.
Street knowledge. Street knowledge. Quick service announcement brought to you in part by Warriors.
Damn, that shit was dope.
Okay, and welcome back to the Warrior Creed live stream. You can see the ticker on the bottom there. This is where to find all of Radical Media's podcasts, the weekly Radical Dispatch, which is our weekly analysis provided with receipts. All of the videos and all of the evidence that we demonstrate in this live stream are provided with hyperlinks for you to look up for yourselves in the weekly Radical Dispatch published on that address there, majidnawaz.substack.com. And that is the home of Radical Media. We encourage everybody to go there and subscribe, but also to become premium members of Radical Media, which gives you access to the full behind the paywall Radical Dispatch, and in addition, the podcast version of this stream, plus early bird tickets. And on that note, there are some early bird tickets that we are offering over the course of this stream and tomorrow for our subscribers, which you will become aware of in the Radical Dispatch tomorrow, but we'll also mention over the course of this stream today. But the topic for today, as we've mentioned to those of you just joining the stream, that is here. It is on your screens now, and that is Poland strips Zelensky of national medal for supporting Nazis. That is the developing situation in tension between Poland and Ukraine. This has a direct impact on Britain's relationship with Zelensky and the Ukraine war, as we shall go into. It also has a direct relationship with our allies' relationships with Zelensky, and all of that we're going to demonstrate. This is the cartoon for today's stream. As you can see on your screens, the only way out of the maze of Nazism is down the loo, down the toilet. There is no other respectable path for Nazism. It must be like jihadist terrorism and its ideology, Islamism, as we're going to demonstrate over the course of this stream. All of these isms must be treated with the truth and the reality as it is, and that is that they are all anathema to the human experience. They are concoctions devised in modernity to allow for the polarization of humanity with their imaginations using these ideologies. These are toxic ideologies, whether they are Islamism, Nazism, communism, Marxism, Likudnik, Zionism. These isms are what are disturbing our peace at the moment. And we're going to demonstrate that through the course of this stream with one particular ism, and that is Nazism and its role in the Ukraine war. So let's begin by bringing to you the article of this news from the London Times, and we will allow give us a moment just to share the screen, and we can bring it up on the screen for you. Hold on. So the news comes alongside a speech that has been given by the Prime Minister of Poland, which we also plan to play for you as well. This is an article published in the Times, the London Times, on the 24th of June. If we can just give us a moment to bring up this shared screen, because we're having an issue pulling up the screen. 1 second. Right. Well, should be able to see the screen there now, but unfortunately that's not the one we want to show you. Let's see if this works. We'll get started momentarily. Just bear with us. Okay, we are having some technical issues with the sharing of the screen for some reason on Safari, but we're going to try and resolve this. So just give us a moment, because we do want to get through this stream with you. But it might take us a couple of minutes to pull up an alternative as we resolve this tech issue. Our apologies, but we are going to get this resolved for you as soon as possible so we can continue with this stream. Bear with us. In the meanwhile, as we're working to resolve this issue, we will carry on discussing what the main topic, the main point is. There is a national medal that Poland has granted multiple recipients in the past. The Poles had granted this national medal to Zelensky. And meanwhile, we're providing support as a country. Poland, as a country, was providing support for training the Ukrainian military. What has happened is that under Zelensky, the Ukrainian military has named one of their battalions after the Nazis that fought in World War II, and those particular Nazis after whom their battalions are named have been involved historically, according to Poland, in atrocities that were committed against the Poles, including what historians have referred to as a genocide against the Poles. This has significantly offended the Poles. And as a result of that offense, the Poles have decided to rescind the medal that was awarded to Zelensky. This is the topic that we're discussing today, but we're trying to get the news up for you. But the issues we're having with our tech at the moment are delaying us, but we will get there. Bear with us just a moment. The Polish Prime Minister has also given a speech that is a speech that we have the subtitled speech that we are able to also play you, announcing this decision and announcing his specific disappointment in with Zelensky over the fact that they have decided to glorify the Nazis in this way. We are just attempting to resolve the tech issue for you before we come to this stream, so do bear with us and we will resolve this issue for you as soon as possible. Bear with us a second, nearly done. This should have issue, hopefully. Right. Hopefully this is now working. And you should be able to see the shared screen. Hopefully this is now working. So let's see if we can get through this stream now. Right. There seems to be some delay on our end as well. We're experiencing some very frustrating tech problems. Ignited a simmering. This is the detail as described in the text of the article. It states the Order of the White Eagle, one of the oldest decorations awarded anywhere in the world, is a testament to the knotty complexities of Polish history. Over 3 centuries, it has been bestowed on figures as varied as Queen Elizabeth II, Benito Mussolini, the Japanese Emperor Hirohito, and a distant relative of Robert the Bruce, who fought the Swedes for Tsar Peter I of Russia. Seldom, though, has it caused such an international commotion as it has in the past few days. The decision by President Nawrocki of Poland to strip the honor from President Zelensky of Ukraine has precipitated a meltdown in relations. To continue reading, Zelensky prompted the latest crisis by renaming a Ukrainian Special Forces unit after the heroes of the UPA, or Ukrainian Insurgent Army. In Ukraine, the UPA, a paramilitary force under the aegis of the right-wing extremist Stepan Bandera, its forces also massacred between 60,000 and 120,000 Poles in the border regions of Volhynia and Eastern Galicia from March 1943 to the end of 1944. This has widely been described by historians as an act of genocide. The renamed Special Forces Unit is not the only case. Several Ukrainian formations have adopted names or symbols associated with the Third Reich. These include drone units dubbed Luftwaffe and Nachtigall, which is based on the German word for nightingale and appears to allude to a Nazi German Unified Armed Forces battalion that was mostly made up of Ukrainian volunteers. Here you can see now on your screen, hopefully there, an image of the patch that the Ukrainian Nazis, Ukrainians are wearing of a Nazi battalion, the drone warfare battalion called Luftwaffe there. You can see an image. That image is in the Times newspaper. So this is not an issue of rumors. It's very clear what is being promoted and glorified here. And what we're going to now show you is the speech of the Polish Prime Minister. Here is the Polish Prime Minister saying the President of the Republic of Poland, Karol Nawrocki's decision regarding the stripping of the Order of the White Eagle from the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. So let's just play you that speech by the President of Poland, explaining why he's removed and stripped Zelensky of this medal. Hopefully we can blow this up on your screens now. There we are. And you should be able to read the subtitles. The speech is, of course, in Polish.
porzucamy ich i zawsze się o nich upominamy. Szacunek dla przodków i uczciwość wobec historii są obowiązkiem nas wszystkich. Naród, który traci pamięć, traci część swojej. Państwo, które przestaje bronić prawdy o swojej historii, przestaje być strażnikiem narodowego szacunku. Prawda historyczna nie jest i nigdy nie może być kartą przetargową. Pamięć o ofiarach jest moralnym obowiązkiem państwa polskiego. Dla zdecydowanej większości polskiego społeczeństwa ukraińska powstańcza armia UPA pozostaje przede wszystkim formacją Rzeczypospolitej podczas II wojny światowej. Stanowisko państwa polskiego w tej sprawie jest znane od lat. W 2016 roku Sejm Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej uznał zbrodnie dokonane przez OUN i UPA za ludobójstwo. Na mocy tego aktu dzień 11 lipca został ustanowiony Narodowym Dniem Pamięci Ofiar Ludobójstwa zamordowanych przez UPA na Wołyniu, w Galicji Wschodniej, Lubelszczyźnie czy Podkarpaciu tylko dlatego, że byli Polakami lub Żydami czy innymi mniejszościami. Faktem jest, że ofiarami byli mieszkańcy, dzieci i osoby starsze. Nie byli żołnierzami na polu, mordowani brutalnie i bestialsko. Faktem jest również, że do dziś ofiary nie doczekały się godnego pochówku. Dlatego nadanie jednych jednostek wojskowych nazwy odwołującej się do zbrodniarzy z UPA ma znaczenie wykraczające daleko poza wewnętrzną sprawę Ukrainy. Polska wielokrotnie sygnalizowała stronie ukraińskiej szczególną wagę tej kwestii. Przekazywaliśmy nasze stanowisko i oczekiwanie ponownego rozważenia skutków tej decyzji dla relacji między naszymi państwami. Ostatecznie stanowisko strony ukraińskiej nie uległo zmianie. Historia nie powinna być przeszkodą dla przyszłości. Dobra przyszłość może jednak zostać zbudowana wyłącznie na prawdzie. Polska wielokrotnie pokazywała, że potrafi kształtować przyszłość ponad ciężarem przeszłości. Ale nikt tego nie pamięci. Przez ostatnie lata konsekwentnie budowaliśmy relacje z Ukrainą oparte na partnerstwie i dialogu. Po objęciu przeze mnie urzędu prezydenta podjęliśmy wspólnie z prezydentem Ukrainy wysiłek odbudowy zaufania. Udało się osiągnąć postęp w sprawach, które przez dziesięciolecia pozostawały nierozwiązane. Zwrot kościoła świętego Mikołaja w Kijowie, zgody na poszukiwania i ekshumację polskich ofiar w Ostrówkach, Woli Ostrowieckiej, Hucie Pieniackiej, Kołosku, Zboiskach, Ubłach czy Późnikach były sygnałem, że mimo trudnej historii możliwe jest porozumienie. Wszystkie te działania dawały podstawy do uznania, że Polska i Ukraina stopniowo odnajdują drogę do trwałego pojednania. Dlatego decyzja władz ukraińskich o gloryfikacji UPA jest nie tylko oburzająca, jest również niezrozumiała, głęboko rozczarowująca. Uderza ona nie tylko w pamięć historyczną, uderza również w zaufanie budowane przez lata i przez ostatnie miesiące. fundament pojednania. Uderza w przekonanie, że prawda może być wspólnym językiem naszych narodów. Polska jeszcze przed napaścią Rosji należała do państw aktywnie wspierających europejskie aspiracje Ukrainy. Po rosyjskiej inwazji w 2022 roku Polacy otworzyli granice, otworzyli swoje domy i swoje serca dla milionów Ukraińców. Wszyscy pamiętamy te przejmujące obrazy kobiet, dzieci, osób chorych i starszych. Nawet zwierzęta domowe zabierane z pożogi wojny zostały objęte opieką w specjalnych punktach weterynaryjnych. Nie było obozów dla uchodźców. To były zwykłe domy czy hotele. Robiliśmy, co mogliśmy, by ratować naszych sąsiadów. Polska w tym strasznym momencie udzieliła bezprecedensowej pomocy humanitarnej, politycznej, gospodarczej i wojskowej. Przekonywaliśmy do szybkiej pomocy inne państwa. Dziś w Polsce żyje ponad 1,5 miliona Ukraińców. Skala pomocy finansowej, którą przekazaliśmy walczącej Ukrainie, to miliardy złotych. Jako zwierzchnik sił zbrojnych muszę przypomnieć również, że polskie wojsko przeszkoliło tysiące ukraińskich żołnierzy. Nie możemy dziś przyjąć obojętnej z nich teraz będzie służyć pod sztandarem UPA. To jest dla nas nie do zaakceptowania. Nie przypominam tych liczb i danych, by żądać wdzięczności, ale przypominam je, by wszyscy zrozumieli, dlaczego decyzja prezydenta Ukrainy budzi w nas tak ogromny sprzeciw. My też jako wspólnota ponosimy koszty tej wojny. Nie walczymy bezpośrednio, ale nasze zaangażowanie jest wyjątkowe i mocne. Order Orła Białego nie jest zwykłym wyróżnieniem. Jest symbolem najwyższego zaufania Rzeczypospolitej. Oznacza szczególną więź z państwem polskim oraz szczególną wdzięczność narodu. Taki symbol wymaga nie tylko szacunku dla wartości, które stanowią fundament naszej wspólnoty. Prezydent Rzeczypospolitej jest wielkim mistrzem Orderu Orła Białego i ma obowiązek stać na straży honoru, tego najwyższego odznaczenia państwowego. Obowiązek ten spoczywa również na kapitule Orderu Orła Białego. Dlatego wobec zgody prezydenta Wołodymyra Zełańskiego na nadanie jednej z jednostek sił zbrojnych Ukrainy nazwy o odebraniu Orderu Orła Białego prezydentowi Ukrainy. W tym miejscu chcę podkreślić, decyzja ta nie jest przeciwko narodowi ukraińskiemu. Nie oznacza zmiany strategicznego kierunku polskiej polityki bezpieczeństwa. Wspieraliśmy i wspieramy Ukrainę, ponieważ wiemy, że rosyjska agresja stanowi zagrożenie dla bezpieczeństwa Polski i całej Europy. W tej ocenie nic się nie zmieniło. Rosja jest agresorem, a Putin to zbrodniarz, który ponosi odpowiedzialność za rozpętanie wojny, która przyniosła Europie największy konflikt zbrojny od zakończenia II wojny światowej. Za każdą zbombardowaną dzielnicą mieszkalną, za każdym dzieckiem zmuszonym do ucieczki, za każdą rodziną rozdzieloną przez przemoc stoi decyzja podjęta na Kremlu. To nie jest tylko przypadek historii. Polska zna cenę rosyjskiego imperializmu lepiej niż większość narodów Europy. Znamy ją nie z podręczników, lecz z historii zapisanej krwią naszych przodków. Znamy ją z rozbiorów, z Sybiru, od życia za żelazną kurtyną. Znamy ją z doświadczenia pokoleń, którym próbowano odebrać wolność, godność i prawo do samostanowienia. Dlatego nie wolno jednej brutalnej prawdy. Wolność nie jest dana raz na zawsze. Każde pokolenie musi być gotowe jej strzec. By stanąć po stronie tych, którzy walczą o nią również dziś. Ukraina ma prawo do obrony swojej niepodległości, a Polska pozostaje orędownikiem jej suwerenności i integralności terytorialnej. Polska pozostaje gotowa do współpracy z Ukrainą. Polska pozostaje zwolennikiem dialogu, ale Polska będzie konsekwentnie strzegła pamięci swoich obywateli oraz godności własnych symboli państwowych. Polska będzie broniła swoich narodowych interesów i wartości. Polska nie zgodzi się na gloryfikowanie tych, którzy mordowali polskich bezbronnych cywilów. Droga Ukrainy do struktur europejskich wymaga również gotowości do uczciwego zmierzenia się z trudnymi kartami własnej historii. Zjednoczona Europa została zbudowana na odrzuceniu totalitaryzmów i kultu przemocy. Te zasady muszą obowiązywać wszystkich. Dla tych, którzy tego nie rozumieją, miejsca w Unii Europejskiej być nie może. I Polska na pewno na to nie pozwoli. Ukraina powinna również pamiętać, że nic nie służy interesom Kremla bardziej niż konflikt między Polakami a Ukraińcami. Każdy spór dotyczący pamięci historycznej osłabia nasze narody i wzmacnia tych, by podzielić i podbić Europę. W naszej wspólnej historii mamy symbole rzeczywistej, bezcennej współpracy w walce ze wspólnym zagrożeniem ze strony agresywnych imperiów. Hetman Piotr Konaszewicz-Sachajdaczny w wieku XVII, hetman Filip Orlik w wieku XVIII, ataman Szymon Petlura w wieku XX. Na tych postaciach dobrze, mądrze można budować kulturę pamięci i zgody między naszymi narodami. Takiego współdziałania potrzebujemy. Wzmacnianie pamięci zatrutej zbrodnią niestety nie buduje, lecz psuje, niszczy nasze relacje. Dlatego dzisiejsza decyzja ma nie tylko charakter symboliczny, jest również sygnałem ostrzegawczym. Są granice, których w polsko-ukraińskich przekraczać nie wolno. Jest także apelem do naszych sąsiadów. Wróćcie na drogę prawdy i wzajemnego szacunku. Szanowni Państwo, to także lekcja dla nas samych. Nie możemy pozostawać obojętni wobec afirmacji symboli zbrodni. Nie możemy pozwalać na propagowanie ideologii odpowiedzialnych za ludobójstwo. Tak samo jak odrzucamy symbole niemieckiego nazizmu i sowieckiego komunizmu, musimy odrzucać kult sprawców zbrodni wołyńskiej. W polskiej przestrzeni publicznej nie ma miejsca dla czerwono-czarnych banderowskich flag. Najwyższy czas usankcjonować to prawnie. Jednocześnie nie może być przyzwolenia na zrównywanie UPA z AK, czy żołnierzami niezłomnymi. W przeciwieństwie do UPA Komenda Główna AK przestrzegała przed ślepą zemstą, zakazując zabijania kobiet i dzieci. Ci, którzy głoszą takie kłamstwa, powinni być wykluczeni z publicznej. Szanowni Państwo, nie możemy zapomnieć o naszej historii. Nie możemy porzucić naszej pamięci. Nie możemy oddać godności naszych ofiar. Tak rozumiemy obowiązek wobec tych, którzy nie mogą już mówić własnym głosem. Tak rozumiemy znaczenie Orderu Orła Białego. Polska żyje, gdy naród pamięta. Niech żyje Polska.
Now, as hopefully you would have heard, there's it's an incredibly delicate position that Poland has decided to balance here in their rejection of Zelensky's glorification of Nazis, while at the same time trying to make clear that they do not support the Russian aggression, nor at the same time are they in any way sympathetic to some of the more controversial claims made by Putin with regards to Ukraine. So the Poles are finding themselves having to balance this act. But in that speech, and there's a reason we played it in full, and we hope you think it was worth it as well, because in that speech, the Polish Prime Minister has made clear that in that speech, the Polish Prime Minister made clear that the ascension of Ukraine to the European Union will be blocked by Poland unless these issues are resolved. It was a very clear red line that the Polish Prime Minister has suggested that Ukraine has crossed, and that red line, he is not willing to tolerate that red line being crossed, and as a result, has made it very clear that Zelensky not only symbolically has had this honor stripped from him, but at the same time, this particular the ambition of Ukraine to join the European Union itself will not be supported by Poland if this is how they choose. If Ukraine, this is how Ukraine chooses to reward Poland for its support for the Ukrainians. Another element of the speech there provided by the president of Poland that is important to understand is that the Poles and their history do recognize the importance of a balanced approach here, recognizing the right of a people for their freedom and liberation from an aggressor. The Poles themselves struggled because they were behind the Iron Curtain. The Poles themselves struggled to liberate their country from the Soviet Union behind the Iron Curtain. So their issue is not necessarily the national liberation struggle of Ukraine, but is instead the fact that the Ukrainians, in receiving the support from the Poles, have violated one of their red lines in doing so. And that is a red line that is very specifically related to the glorification of Nazism. Europe's historic struggle is a struggle that is both against communism in those days, the Soviet Union, and against Nazism, and that's something the Poles have made very clear. A long time, and what we're going to do is play for you one of our early warnings on this topic on the Patrick Bet regards to the Ukrainian support for Nazism, which should be playing on your screens about now.
I come from a background where all Arab dictators have been our enemy. I have no sympathy for Assad, but what I wouldn't want to ever accept is that we replace Assad with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which is what we were brought to an end, by the way. And I think, to give you one final example, take Ukraine and the Azov Nazis, who aren't even neo-Nazis, they're actual Nazis. They come from Nadira tradition, with the surviving elements of Nazism and the collaborators in Ukraine from the era of Nazism up until today. They are still there. Now, Azov, every country has racists, but Azov is a battalion that was integrated into the Ukrainian army and formally became National Guard. So the Ukrainian National Guard is the Azov battalion. Azov are Nazis. This is not in dispute. This is not opinion. This is a matter of fact. I, for 10 years, ran the world's first and leading counter-extremism organization. It was our job to brief prime ministers and presidents on who is an extremist. I've met in that pursuit George, Tony Blair, David Cameron, more heads of state than I can imagine, one-on-one, talking like this. I am telling you, as of our Nazis, this is not in dispute, it's a fact. They have Nazi insignia, and yet we're sending weapons and funds to Nazis who are integrated into the Ukrainian army. That's like saying that because we wanted to get rid of Assad, we're going to fund ISIS. You can't run the in a way where the ends by the means, because then you have what we people call collateral damage. Imagine that in the intellectual side of things. You are I come from a background where all Arab dictators have been our enemy. I have no sympathy for Assad, but what I wouldn't want to ever accept is that we replace Assad with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which is what we were brought to an end, by the way. And I think, to give you one final example, take Ukraine and the Azov Nazis, who aren't even neo-Nazis, they're actual Nazis. They come from the Bandera tradition, which is the surviving elements of Nazism and the collaborators in Ukraine from the era of Nazism up until today. They are still there. Now, Azov, now every country has racists, but Azov is a battalion that was integrated into the Ukrainian army and formally became National Guard. So the Ukrainian National Guard is the Azov battalion. Azov are Nazis. This is not in dispute. This is not an opinion. This is a matter of fact. I, for 10 years, ran the world's first and leading counter-extremism organization. It was our job to brief prime ministers and presidents on who is an extremist. I've met in that pursuit George Bush, Tony Blair, David Cameron, more heads of state than I can imagine. One talking like this. I am telling you, as of our Nazis, this is not in dispute, it's a fact. They have Nazi insignia, and yet we're sending weapons and funds to Nazis who are integrated into the Ukrainian army. That's like saying that because we wanted to get rid of Assad, we're going to fund ISIS. You can't run the world in a way where the ends justify the means, because then you have what people call collateral damage. Imagine that in the intellectual side of things. We
Apologies for the bad signal here, but you get the gist. That was from Patrick Bet-David, our appearance a while back, warning of the fact that the Azov Nazis are being promoted by Zelensky in Ukraine and have been elevated to form the National Guard in Ukraine. But it doesn't stop there. We're going to show you a couple of more clips because we also warned of this on Timcast. All of this will be included in the dispatch tomorrow, so don't worry if you're getting a bad signal. We will include all of this. It's why we want you to go to majidnawaz.substack.com to subscribe anyway, because clearly our live streaming is being interrupted on multiple platforms. But nevertheless, we're going to try and get through some of these other videos for you. Here is us on Timcast again years ago saying the same thing, that Ukraine has been overrun by Nazis and we should question our support for and funding for Zelensky, and instead we should rush to end this war as soon as possible.
Some people say, look, your country's been invaded, everyone should fight, we don't care if they're Nazis. And my point is, if you organize them into a formal battalion, that's the equivalent. So the analogy is false there with saying every country has racists. The equivalent analogy is the US Armed Forces having a formal KKK battalion with KKK flags as part of the army. That's the analogy, right? It's shocking. If the US did that, if the UK did that, people would be up in arms, but we're funding it in Ukraine.
And how come many of these woke YouTubers and personalities who have no problem in these groups in Ukraine?
But battalion is fine.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend, so they say.
And
I'm not a fan of that ideology.
Well, no, if they're going to say that, then I'm going to hold them to their word and say, so why is it wrong to fund ISIS in Syria and go and join them? We've got UK media calling for British citizen volunteers to go and join the Foreign Legion in Ukraine. Young Muslim men went to join ISIS in Syria. That's terrorism, but you can go and join a Nazi brigade in Ukraine.
It's because public perception. They look, ISIS somehow managed to get, I think the famous image was like
And that was a clip again from the Timcast show. Again, in tomorrow's dispatch, we will contain the link for the full clip from both the Patrick Bet-David show as well as the full clip to the Timcast show that you've just seen. And there's one more we want to show you because these were all early warnings indicating that it's very dangerous, the game that we are playing in Ukraine. This is an early one from the Tucker Carlson show, making again the same point. Back in the days when Tucker Carlson was still on Fox News. Oh, how the world has changed. This is, of course, shortly or very shortly after I was cancelled from LBC, but Tucker was still on Fox News at this time, and therefore these points were still possible to be made on cable networks, though, of course, they are now slightly harder to make due to the way in which the world changed. But still, let us play this for you as well.
even before the war, Axios, The Guardian, the Atlantic Council, all of them were reporting that Zelensky, even though he ran on an anti-corruption ticket, has, through the Panama Papers and other such leaks, has stashed his millions offshore like most corrupt oligarchs have. And so even before the war, his corruption was known. And then you fast forward to what he's done over this weekend with the banning of 11 opposition parties. And I want to note at this stage that he banned these opposition parties, including, as you mentioned, Tucker, the second largest in his parliament, while the Nazis that aren't neo in any sense, they're the continuation of Nazis as we know them and study them, that they revere, was actually a Nazi, and they've made him into a national hero and icon. The Nazis in Ukraine have not been banned by Zelensky. And so this is a very interesting point, that you've got a man that we're hailing as a democratic icon who's fighting for freedom and democracy in our way of life, banning all opposition parties, controlling this, through the state the media narrative, while refusing not only to ban Nazis, but having, after not banning them, incorporated them into his state. Azov as a battalion formally serves in the Ukrainian National Guard. Now, people say to that in response, yeah, but Majid, there are racists in every country. No, the analogy here is, imagine, Tucker, in America, the KKK had a formal battalion in the US military. That's what we've got with swastikas and Nazi insignia inside the Ukrainian army. And then,
so as is hopefully clear by now, the warnings, we've been attempting to give these warnings for many years. That clip that you just saw there from Tucker Carlson was shortly after I was cancelled from LBC, but still while he was on Fox News. That's how long ago it was. And one more clip to show you. This is from February 2022 on the Joe Rogan show, episode 1780, making exactly the same point, repeating this warning. This is perhaps the first one and the most viral of those episodes that we're showing you, and that's the Joe Rogan episode 1780, in which we make this same warning again. And all of this has, of course, come to a head now with Poland and the European Union because of what you just saw there with the president of Poland making that speech. But what we're trying to show you is this has been brewing for a very long time. Listen to this.
Ukraine, I believe it's a folly. Russia and Putin, of course, like, you know, all governments, they have their own interests, their own agendas, yeah? But what we really should be looking at isn't throwing Russia further into the bosom of China, which is what we're doing at the moment. You've got a Russia-China alliance against us. Surely, if we're going to be clever, we need to be able to use diplomacy with Putin and separate Russia from China. Because the bigger danger, Russia isn't our friend, but the bigger danger is China. The way we're behaving at the moment, whether it's with Ukraine or in Syria, is we're pushing that alliance closer. You've got Iran, Russia, China, and they've got cooperation. With Biden's screw up in Afghanistan, and not the fact we withdrew. I've never been for the war, as we've discussed, but the way he withdrew. The Taliban now have more Black Hawk helicopters than the entire British Army because of Biden, right? The Bagram Air Base, that was the American base in Afghanistan, the Daily Mail reported, and you can look it up if you want to, but I'll just tell you, the Daily Mail reported that Chinese military have now landed at Bagram. So you've got this axis developing, Russia, China, Iran, and Afghanistan, ruled by the Taliban. If we're going to be clever, we've got to realize this rising bloc, it's not in our interests for them to stay united in that way. We should be attempting diplomacy with Russia and focusing on China as a rising concern.
And again, hopefully you can see how very clear that is. These are, this is a clip from 2022 on Rogan. These are warnings we here at Radical Media have been trying to give for many years, though, of course, the warnings clearly hadn't been heeded. Here is a Radical dispatch from the 16th of May, 2022, entitled The Return of Nazism. Be in your weekly dish tomorrow. We can read a bit from there. Unlike anywhere else we've said, we are directly arming and funding the Nazis in Ukraine, Azov is fully integrated into the Ukrainian National Guard. This is like America having a formal KKK battalion in its armed forces. Again here, 28th of February 2022, Russia, Ukraine, NATO, the EU, and a few good men. That is a radical dispatch again from 2022, in which we wrote formal insignia raising neo-Nazi battalions in the Ukrainian armed forces and police. Surely not. Read on. The truth is far worse than that, I'm afraid. All of these will be published in tomorrow's dispatch, but why it matters is an important point to consider here. And what we're going to show you is the practical consequences of these relationships that the funding relationships, the military relationships that we have with Nazis in Ukraine. From a radical dispatch in 2023 that is on your screens, you should be able to see now, called "The Canadian Parliament grants a standing ovation to an actual Nazi SS officer from World War II after Zelensky's speech." Yes, that's the case. This is the dispatch. That's the image we used for the dispatch at the time. As you should be able to see now, it's a amalgamation of trans flags making a swastika, because the entire identitarian ideology is inspired by the same troublemakers as those who would be supporting the Nazi ideology as well. Communism, Marxism, Nazism, and Islamism all have the same backers, and that is something that is becoming increasingly evident. But from that dispatch, we wrote, "Nazi collaborator Zelensky of Ukraine has finally succeeded in tipping the corporatist press into disbelief." Just as the Ukrainian president finished his address last Friday in the House of Commons, this is from 2023, Canadian lawmakers gave a standing ovation to 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka, who, when Speaker Anthony Rota drew attention to him. Rota introduced Hunka as a war hero who fought for the 1st Ukrainian Division. In reality, the 1st Ukrainian Division was also known as the Waffen SS Galatsy Division, or the SS 14th Waffen Division, a voluntary unit that was under the command of the Nazis and committed known atrocities against innocent, unarmed civilians. The Associated Press reports on the 25th of September, 2023. You should be able to see the headline on your screens now. In fact, we blow it up for you so you can see it as well. And you should be able to read it as we read it out to you. It says, leader of Canada's House of Commons apologizes for honoring man who fought for Nazis. That's the Associated Press from 2023. And we may, in fact, let's even read a passage for you from that. The Speaker of Canada's House of Commons apologized Sunday for recognizing a man who fought for a Nazi military unit during World War II. Just after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered an address in the House of Commons on Friday, Canadian lawmakers gave 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka a standing ovation when Speaker Anthony Rota drew attention to him. Rota introduced Hunka as a war hero who fought for the 1st Ukrainian Division. The 1st Ukrainian Division was also known as the Waffen SS Galatzia Division, or the SS 14th Waffen Division, a voluntary unit that was under the command of the Nazis. The Friends of the Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies issued a statement Sunday saying the division was responsible for the mass murder of innocent civilians with a level of brutality and malice that is unimaginable. Members of Parliament from all parties rose to applaud Hunka. Here is an image of the Nazi in the Canadian Parliament, and there is Zelensky next to then PM of Canada, Trudeau. And that Nazi on the left of that image there received a standing ovation in the Canadian Parliament. As shocking as that sounds, this is why we say, and again, going to repeat the words, these are not neo-Nazis we're talking about. That's an actual Nazi from the actual era of Nazism in World War II, received a standing ovation in the Canadian Parliament because Zelensky's entourage brought him with them and wanted him honored in the Canadian Parliament. It became exposed. The Associated Press wrote about it, and Canada, it was embroiled in huge trouble as a result. But that is the same very woke Canada that loves to talk about minority rights. It's the same PM Trudeau, who was the PM at the time, who is notorious for loving blackface. And that is why we mentioned earlier this alliance between the far left and all of the isms, whether communism, Nazism, or Islamism, is not new. And they do it on purpose because they themselves are totalitarians and they ally with other totalitarians of any ideology in order to destroy those who love liberty. The purpose is the end game is technocracy. It doesn't matter. That technocracy can be achieved, by the way, whether it's achieved through Islamism or indeed through Nazism or communism. They don't mind. The point is, once you have a totalitarian system in place, you can implement your digital ID and your technocracy. This is why globalists support all these isms. And it is why it is important to understand what's going on in Ukraine, to expose it and to connect it to their backers in our countries as well, because it's not just Canada. As we wrote in a radical dispatch dated the 19th of June, 2024, 2 years ago now. And we're going to read it for you. The dispatch is called Reform UK leader Nigel Farage insists Ukraine must make peace with Russia and may be partitioned. In that dispatch from 2 years ago, we published images of our own former Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, raising the Azov Nazi flag in our parliament. And the image now is on your screen. That is British Prime Minister Boris Johnson raising a flag of the Azov Battalion in the British Parliament. There is by now, over the course of this stream, as there should be no doubt that the Azov Battalion are indeed a Nazi battalion. We have demonstrated not only our own consistent claims in this regard, but also demonstrated with the reference to Poland, and we will publish all of these receipts tomorrow, that the Azov Nazis are indeed a Nazi battalion, and yet there is the former Prime Minister of Britain raising the Azov Nazi flag in our British Parliament. It is a disgrace. In fact, it is a dishonor to our parliament that Boris Johnson raised a Nazi flag inside it. And here is a video of Johnson at that particular event in the British Parliament praising Azov, which, remember, is a Nazi battalion. And that's why the stream today is so important. We're just going to play you this video of Boris Johnson praising the Azov Nazis in the British Parliament, and then come back to Poland and what this all means for the future of Poland's relationship with Ukraine and the future of Ukraine's relationship with the EU.
My message to you is very simple. Thank you to the heroes from the Azov Brigade who won their president tonight. Give the Ukrainians what they need. Give them the weapons. Give them the authorization to use those weapons outside their own borders. It is now absolutely ludicrous that Ukrainians should be forbidden from doing what Putin is doing himself and attacking Ukrainian forces. Why on earth should Ukrainians be able to attack Russian forces mustering on their borders? Give them those weapons, give them the attackers, give them the budget, give them the air defences that they need. It's the single best investment that we can make in the defence of the whole Euro-Atlantic area, is supporting Ukrainian heroes. We rely wholly on heroes such as the people who are here tonight with us from the Azov Brigade.
That is disgracefully the former British Prime Minister praising the Azov Nazis in the British Parliament. Remember, these are not neo-Nazis. Azov are the successors to the Stepan Bandera actual Nazis who committed atrocities in World War II. The Bandera and their brigades remain till today in Ukraine. They are being celebrated by Zelensky. They committed massacres against the Poles, and that is why the Polish president has stripped Zelensky of the highest honor that they could have awarded any leader, because this problem has not stopped. It's only got worse, and it is as a result of the legitimization that Zelensky is providing Nazis in Ukraine. Our countries are now complicit in the funding of Nazis, and are providing military support to Nazis as well. And as you can see in the New York Times reported on your screens now, we've provided billions in European tours. Zelensky reached billions in promised military aid. We have been funding Nazis. It is high time that this completely stopped. And what with the peace negotiations that are currently ongoing as mediated by Pakistan between the United States of America and Iran to resolve the conflict in Iran. Once this conflict is resolved, it becomes imperative for President Trump to resolve the conflict between Putin and Ukraine, Russia and Ukraine. And that conflict not only must be resolved militarily, it will most likely result in the partition of Ukraine, with the ethnic Russian-speaking areas going to Russia, remaining autonomous with Russia, and the rest of Ukraine staying as Ukraine. That is the way to resolve the conflict. The Dnieper River is the natural partition in Ukraine. Anything northeast of that Dnieper River goes to the ethnic-speaking Russian areas. Putin keeps Crimea, and Putin keeps those ethnic-speaking Russian areas. The rest of Ukraine remains Ukraine. As for the Ukrainian side and their desired ascension into the European Union, well, the polls have now made this very clear, that for them to even have a whiff of a chance of becoming members of the European Union, which is none of Britain's concern, mind you, because Britain is also not a member of the European Union, and nor should it ever return to trying to become a member of the European Union. Brexit's happened in this country, and that's that. It should be implemented. And again, that is despite what the Labour Party under Starmer or Andy Burnham may or may not say on this issue. But as for Ukraine, it's seeking to join the European Union. But Poland is rightfully and understandingly presenting an obstacle in this path now, even though those Poles had been involved in not only hosting 1.5 million Ukrainian refugees in their country, they were also providing training and military and logistical support for Ukraine against Russia. And despite all of that help they've provided them, now they've put their foot down because they say Zelensky's crossed a red line by glorifying and praising Nazis as he has done. In particular, he has praised the Nazis that were responsible for some historians say genocide, but certainly massacres against Poles. And so the Poles are incredibly upset. The Order of the White Eagle has been rescinded from Zelensky, and that is for his decision to name his special forces unit after the Ukrainian insurgent army, which are followers of Bandera, the UPA. They are followers of Bandera, and also naming certain formations, such as his drone formations in Ukraine, literally naming them the Luftwaffe. So this has now become a red line for Poland, that no longer, in honor of their own national memory, are they able to tolerate Zelensky's promotion and support for Nazism inside Ukraine. Let that be an example for the rest of the European Union. Let that be an example for NATO, who also shamefully have been embroiled in supporting Nazis in Ukraine. Let that be a lesson for the United States of America under President Biden, and remnants of whom remain today, those who supported Zelensky's war in Ukraine and his support for Nazis. Let that be a lesson for the United Kingdom and for Canada, who under Boris Johnson and Trudeau respectively hosted Nazis in our parliaments. It is a disgrace and a stain and a shame on us. And you wonder why anti-Semitism is on the rise. You wonder why anti-Muslim hate and bigotry is on the rise across Europe. We have literally been funding extremists, not only under Biden and Obama and John Kerry as Secretary of State, were we funding and providing military strategic support to ISIS in Syria because we wanted to overthrow Assad, but we are doing the same with the Nazis in Ukraine. And ISIS and Nazis are no different. They are both totalitarian, extremist, terrorist militia. The Azov Nazis in Ukraine and ISIS in Syria. It is as wrong to fund ISIS in Syria for pragmatic reasons, so that because we despise Assad, as it is to fund the Azov Nazis in Ukraine because for pragmatic reasons we despise Putin. We do not fund terrorists because we don't like another country. That era is over. Trump put an end to it in Syria. He will put an end to it in Ukraine. The Poles have now joined that struggle to put an end to it in Ukraine. A future Nigel Farage, a prime minister in Britain, will no doubt also put an end to it, because I'm sure Mr. Farage understands that anyone who understands the history of this country knows that in World War II, Britain fought against the Nazis. Britain didn't ally with the Nazis, and nobody who calls themselves a patriot can claim to be so if their mission in life is to fund and support Nazis and to host them in our parliament. That is a betrayal of our country and of our history. It is treacherous, and anybody who hosts Nazis is as treacherous and as much of a traitor to Britain as if they host or fund Hamas or indeed ISIS, as again, we've been complicit in doing so in Syria. And of course, our allies have been complicit in doing so in Gaza, funding Hamas, that is. All of this must come to an end. The polls have now drawn their red line. Trump already drew his red line. We are confident Farage, as Prime Minister, will draw his own red line on this, but we are not confident that our current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, nor the Prime Minister, of course, before him, Boris Johnson, nor the potential incoming Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, have the wherewithal or even the mettle to draw such red lines. In fact, everything up until now that they've done on foreign policy proves they have absolutely no backbone. That is all for this week's Warrior Creed live stream. We will provide all of these receipts and videos for in tomorrow's Radical Dispatch. Again, apologies for the interruptions in this stream. We try our best to bring you this strategically critical news. We do very much appreciate our regular followers. We do hope you recognize that the content of the stream, if not necessarily the sometimes the actual technical aspects, but at least the content is spot on and hopefully provides you with foresight and analysis that allows you to see what's coming down the road. And of course, we will provide all these receipts for you in the Radical Dispatch tomorrow. We ask all of you to go to this address that is on your screens at the bottom in the ticker, majidnawaz.substack.com. That address is where Radical Media sits. You can get the podcast version of this stream as well as all the other behind the paywall content. And what we hope to do is provide also for all of those who subscribe to Radical Media paywall services, including advanced notification of events and tickets. We did say we'd come back to that. So one last thing, we are hosting we are participating in a big event in London this end of this year. Let's see if we can pull the advert up for you on your screens now, just so that everybody can see exactly what we're talking about. Of course, it relates to the topic today, and that is those who seek to cause civil war and division in Europe for the purposes of in aid of their police state. You know, the more trouble there is, the more surveillance they will demand, and therefore we end up in a digital technocracy. And part of that, of course, is the division and encouraging of a civil war between Muslims and non-Muslims across Europe. And so in that regard, and with that in mind, we are participating in this debate is compatible with the West. Majid Nawaz versus Raymond Ibrahim for the Winston Marshall Show Live. That is in London. It's a live event on the 11th of September 2026. The QR code is on your screens now for tickets, and there is the poster, which you should be able to see as well. We will post all details of this event with a link to the tickets, that event there, with a link to the tickets in our Radical Dispatch tomorrow. Is Islam compatible with the West? It's a head-to-head debate. Myself against the well-known US academic Raymond Ibrahim, who believes Islam is not compatible with the West. That is a debate we're having live in London this September the 11th, and we will provide you at the Emmanuel Centre in London. We will provide you details in our Radical Dispatch tomorrow on exactly how to get the tickets for that event. That is all we've got time for today's stream, and we will be back next week for the Warrior Creed live stream. You've been listening to Majid Nawaz, the Radical, for the Warrior Creed live stream. Go to majidnawaz.substack.com for further information.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge. Witness the strength of street knowledge. Street knowledge.
Terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan.
Street knowledge. Street knowledge. Quick service announcement brought to you in part by Warriors.